The Tripartite Pact, signed in Berlin on September 27, 1940, contained a hidden legal escape hatch. Its mutual defense obligation under Article 3 applied only if a signatory was directly attacked, not if it was the aggressor. Japan struck first, meaning Germany was legally free to stand aside. Did the Tripartite Pact legally require Hitler to declare war on America? No. Did Hitler hesitate to declare war on the United States? No. On the evening of December 8, 1941, Japanese Ambassador Oshima appeared at Ribbentrop's office with a simple demand: Germany should formalize its commitment to Japan. That same night, Hitler left East Prussia by train for Berlin. A neutral Germany could continue to absorb American supplies destined for Great Britain without offering Washington irrefutable proof to unite an isolationist Congress. However, Hitler bypassed his own legal team. He didn't want an exit. To the Nazi elite, international treaties were mere scrap paper, completely secondary to the raw pursuit of global power and territory. He shattered the diplomatic silence by summoning the Reichstag to meet on December 11th. Before Parliament, he didn't hesitate.
The German people and its soldiers have done the work to secure before history the place that rightfully belongs to the German Reich, and they will do this work now as well. After the German government has established today that President Roosevelt, since the outbreak of the European War, has violated international law in an ever more flagrant manner, and that he has committed actual acts of war against Germany in order to force a declaration of war through the attack of American ships on German naval forces. I have therefore today had the passports delivered to the American chargé d'affaires and had him handed, in the name of the Reich government, the notification that Germany considers itself to be in a state of war with the United States of America.
Deutschland, Sieg heil!
With those formal words, the neutral exit vanished. The Reich was now bound to a global war of its own making. Why did Hitler see Japan as irreplaceable to his war strategy? What did Hitler see in Japan that he couldn't find anywhere else? Why did Hitler choose an enemy he couldn't defeat over an ally he couldn't trust? The answer begins not on December 11th, but in decisions made 5 years earlier, in a worldview that permitted no other choice. The declaration wasn't a spontaneous act. It was the conclusion of a logic that had been building since 1936. Before we continue, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video to support our work. Thank you very much. In November 1936, the German Foreign Ministry signed a document that prefigured the catastrophe of 1941, the Anti-Comintern Pact. This was the moment Berlin officially tied its geopolitical destiny to Tokyo. While his military staff viewed the treaty with traditional Prussian skepticism, Hitler operated on a deep philosophical conviction. He didn't see the Japanese Empire as a mere instrument for temporary military convenience. He saw it as a civilizational mirror. To Hitler, Japan was an uncorrupted warrior state, an authoritarian society built on absolute obedience, hierarchy, and discipline. Long before the first shots of the global war were fired, Hitler had already decided that the liberal West was too weak to survive and that the future belonged to empires forged in blood and steel. A man doesn't throw away a diplomatic exit in 1941 unless his mind was already chained to an alliance 5 years prior. The raw mathematics of global power in 1941 left Berlin with a terrifying vacancy. Italy was a military liability, requiring rescue in the Balkans and North Africa. France was shattered, and Spain's Franco had refused to move. Only Japan possessed a frontline fleet of 10 modern aircraft carriers and the lethal Type 93 Long Lance torpedo. More importantly, Tokyo held the knife to the throat of the British Empire's resource base. German intelligence calculated that if Japan seized Singapore and the Dutch East Indies, the Axis would control 90% of the world's rubber and 70% of its tin. It was a resource monopoly Hitler could never achieve alone. Hitler didn't need Japan to invade America. He needed Japan to starve the British Empire of its imperial lifeblood. Totalitarian authority is a fragile theater. It requires the illusion of absolute, unwavering predictability. Hitler understood that satellite states from Bucharest to Budapest were watching Berlin's reaction to Pearl Harbor with calculating eyes. If Hitler abandoned his primary ally the moment the stakes escalated, the entire architecture of Axis intimidation would fracture. Neutral powers like Turkey and Sweden would see German commitments as negotiable paperwork. In Hitler's internal logic, a calculated retreat was synonymous with political decay. His regime possessed no mechanism for tactical compromise. It had to either expand or shatter. By honoring his pledge to Tokyo, Hitler believed he was demonstrating iron will. He was merely revealing his own strategic paralysis. By December 1941, German naval intelligence, the Fremde Heere West, warned that American mobilization was accelerating regardless of diplomatic status. Hitler convinced himself that a formal declaration of war would actually aid the German war effort by clearing away ambiguity. In his mind, an open enemy was easier to destroy than a wolf in sheep's clothing. He reasoned that a sudden dual-front shock from Germany and Japan would shatter American morale before Washington could convert its civilian economy. It was a preemptive gamble based on his belief that democracies were psychologically incapable of enduring a simultaneous global onslaught. He didn't launch a new war on December 11th. He merely stripped the mask off an illusion that had already died. The underlying tragedy of Hitler's decision was his complete misunderstanding of American industrial capacity. In his private circles, he dismissed the United States as a fractured country, paralyzed by racial diversity and consumer capitalism. He truly believed a society obsessed with automobiles, Hollywood, and domestic comfort couldn't pivot to total warfare. His economic advisors warned him that American steel production alone dwarfed the entire Axis output combined, but Hitler ignored the arithmetic. To a dictator who weaponized fanaticism, raw economic data was secondary to racial willpower. He calculated that Japan would tie down the American Navy for years, leaving Germany free to finish off the Soviet Union without transatlantic interference. He treated the world's largest industrial powerhouse as a paper tiger, forgetting that steel wins long wars, not slogans. On December 11, 1941, Hitler stood before the Reichstag and chose an enemy he couldn't defeat over a peace he couldn't trust. He used his 3 days of isolation to write a manifesto of geopolitical suicide. By 1944, the illusion of Axis solidarity was dead. Japanese armies were locked in a desperate defense of Pacific atolls, utterly incapable of relieving the pressure on the shifting German Eastern Front. The civilizational partners never coordinated a single military campaign, never shared raw materials, and never operated under a unified command. The alliance endured only as an epitaph of pure ideology, a binding contract of mutual destruction signed by two regimes that mistook military fanaticism for historical destiny. By declaring war on the United States while the Wehrmacht was already freezing outside Moscow, Hitler expanded his European war into a global war of attrition, a strategic trap that guaranteed Germany would eventually be crushed under the combined weight of Soviet blood and American industry. History shows that Germany and Japan fought two completely isolated wars with zero actual coordination. If Berlin and Tokyo had synchronized their strategies, forcing the Soviet Union into a two-front war while jointly cutting off American supply lines in the Atlantic and Pacific, do you think they could have broken the Allies, or was American industrial power always going to guarantee an Axis defeat? Let me know your tactical take in the comments.